Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for Thursday, January 11th, 2024. And Chris, putting this one together for this morning, we were wondering if this might be a 4-hour show because so many things happened yesterday.
Yeah, big day and Wednesday in Buckeye Land. I was offline for a few hours, and yeah, I knew it was big. I came back to the Slack news desk in 11 Warriors. There was over 100 comments in there from everyone. I'm like, oh God, what's going on in here? But hey, it turned out that it was pretty much good news, I think. So I'm sure you'll take us through the rundown.
Yeah, mostly good news. I don't think there was any bad news yesterday. If you ask anyone. Pretty much a day of great news, which I think Buckeye Nation kind of needed. Pretty tough 40-some days for Ohio State fans, 50 days or so. So good to get some. Let's start it off quickly. 1:57 p.m., cornerback Denzel Burke announces he's coming back for his senior season. Just a massive getting. It was speculated he might return. I think a lot of people thought he was coming back. Yeah. But in Burke, man, he's a Thorpe semifinalist, coming back to start for his 4th season. Can't overstate how big of a get that is.
No, huge. Every defense needs defensive ends, and they need a lockdown corner at minimum, right? If you're going to be elite, and having Burke come back for another year, especially building off the great year he had this year, is gigantic, right? A little bit of a sophomore slump there after the freshman year, and then bounce back in spades this year. So much so that you thought, hey, yeah, you're hearing he might come back, but you would certainly understand if he goes pro because he's got it. He's got the tools to be a number one. So him coming back and Jim Knowles' defense next year, just gigantic for this program.
Yeah, can't overstate how big of a deal that is. Love his tweet too, man. He said, quote, "There's no rush for me to go to the league. I want to graduate and keep developing it into an elite corner. I'm chasing greatness and my own legacy as a corner. I want to spend this last year with my brothers and win a championship." And that's kind of a theme we're seing. We got some news last week with, recently with Sawyer coming back and Tyleek, and that's kind of been the theme when you started hearing some of these rumbles that a lot of guys could come back. And we've talked a lot about how rare it is for Ohio State to get guys back because we're so used to like, hey, thanks guys, I'm gone.
Right.
But things are changing a little bit.
Yeah, and don't begrudge those guys either. A lot of guys have gone before, at least the lion's share of them. They did have a Big Ten title. They did beat Michigan. They had, even if they didn't win a natty, right? They had done some things. I think this group in particular, we were expecting a lot of them to come back because of maybe some of the things they didn't accomplish. On top of the fact that part of not accomplishing that meant that most of them had higher ceilings, we think, than what they might have realized this year. So that probably also was a part of it. But I don't think you can understate the fact that the culture, the brotherhood, the wanting to come back and, be in better position to leave a legacy at Ohio State. It's one thing to say you played for Ohio State. It's another to say you beat Michigan, you won a title, especially with this run the 20-some years before, right? Where you're running into guys coming back that got a couple, 2-3 pairs of gold pants, around their neck on average, right? So, or hell, maybe higher than that on average. So I think that definitely factors in. That's great, right? At a time when not everybody, the naysayers and things like that are questioning the overall health of the program. And I get some of that, don't get me wrong, but when you can see a lot of guys, signing up to come back. Yeah, I don't think it's just for NFL draft stock. I do buy into they want to play with each other. They definitely feel like they have some unfinished goals as a team. This isn't just about individual. And Burke is a number one coming back, man. Just gigantic for this defense.
And glad you brought those up, man. Those gold pants, man. For a lot of our youth, they were rare. And then for about 20 years, like everyone in town had a pair of gold pants. It seemed at one point in time. And then, for these guys, not many, man. CJ, guy we'll talk about later, man, about to start his first NFL playoff game. Ask him if he'd like a pair of gold pants right now. I mean, who wouldn't? Back to the news drops from yesterday. 8 minutes later, Ohio State puts out an announcement announcing the hiring of Matt Guerrieri as the safeties coach. He's going to replace Perry Eliano, who's fired on Monday by the Buckeyes. And, Perry was a guy that a lot of guys in the room loved him. Really good dude. A lot of players love the guy, but just wasn't really getting it done on the recruiting side. And Guerrieri's like he's a Jim Knowles guy, right? Knowles had an opportunity to put someone in there and, one of his guys in there. And, Guerrieri's first FBS job ever was as a GA under Knowles at Duke in 2012. He was Duke's safeties coach under Knowles in 2015. When Knowles left to go to Oklahoma State, he was promoted to co-defensive coordinator in 2018. 2022, he was in Columbus, actually, as a senior advisor and analyst on Ohio State staff, kind of reuniting with Knowles. It's 7 seasons with Jim Knowles together. Yeah. So it's a guy he really knows, really respects, really trusts, and, coming back to coach with Knowles. I thought Lathan Ransom had a really good quote from before Ohio State played Indiana in September because, after Guerrero left, he went to Indiana to be their co-defensive coordinator for this past season. And he said, it was great, man. He said, quote, he said, I love Coach G, man. When he was here, that was my guy. One of the smartest guys I know. And doesn't get much more glowing than that from a player.
Yeah, well, especially at a position where, Knowles has always said safety is kind of the quarterback of the defense and, really depends on a lot from his safeties and even plays, more safeties than a lot of defenses do. So I think it's huge. I think the other thing that really makes sense here is you think about roster construction, then you think about staff construction. If Day goes out and signs an up and coming offensive coordinator, I'm going to have a much different reaction. But getting an up and coming defensive guy in the secondary, we already have Tim Walton, who's knocking it out of the park as a recruiter. Yeah. He's already knocking it out as far as developing guys, right? Like you've got that. So that's a position where probably you can, I don't want to say afford to take a chance. I don't think they're taking a chance, but you don't have like this grizzled veteran, this guy that can point to, his resume's not bad, but he's still a little bit younger in the game, right? Like, but I think it's an interesting, I think it's a smart move there in that position group where you can definitely take it beyond his chops. I mean, like I said, I don't think his resume is like Knowles is doing him some favor, but I like that, potentially going younger there and seeing, hey, is there a guy here that's really going to have a pretty nice upward trajectory? They obviously liked him when he was here in his first go around. It's not like they chased him off. He went to a different gig. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about the move of adding Guerrero.
Yeah. Fantastic young coach. Bonus, he's an Ohio guy. He's from Willoughby, which is Northeast Ohio, like a little bit past Cleveland on the way to Ashtabula. It's produced some good coaches in that part of the world. Ohio State's announcement said Guerrero will join as the safeties coach, but will, quote, with additional responsibilities to be assigned. More on that in a moment because, man, 3 minutes later, Ohio State announced that special teams coach Parker Fleming will not return. This is a guy who spent 3 seasons as special teams coach here in Columbus after joining the staff in 2018 as a quality control coach. And on the wish list of coaching changes at Ohio State, that was probably the top one by a good bit. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it was more demand than wish, pretty much from the fan base. To your point,
to be a demand,
yeah, rightfully so. I mean, fans obviously ones that knee jerk. They don't have to worry about how you get a replacement and all those other. We talk about that stuff all the time, right? Fan short for fanatic, but I just feel like, folks asking me, when's this going to happen? How can that be the very first thing he's done? Day's doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, he's not coaching special teams tomorrow. Like, just relax. The dude, he's not going to be here. I'm not going to stomp on his grave, but obviously special teams is a dumpster fire, and that only gets worse when it's actually gone on for more than a year. To be honest, you could make it a case you shouldn't have been the special teams coordinator this year, but just knowing that most teams don't even have a special teams coordinator, that's tough, right? Like I'm sure you got a rundown in the notes of just some of the, the lowlights of special teams picked the year.
Fake
and
punts, fielding punts inside the 10, like it's like your business as in the 12th game of the season.
My sleeper favorite is all the holding penalties. When you're going to, high state fair catch is like 75% of the punts and you're getting holding penalty. I mean, just undisciplined. Yeah. The fake punts when not everybody even knows it's a fake punt. That's certainly a favorite, but yeah, I mean, they just had to move on. Like I said, not trying to stomp on someone's grave. You're always talking about someone's livelihood, but I mean, good Lord, this was obviously coming. It was just a matter of, if you already know you're going to do that and you may not have a full-time special teams coach, which it looks like it's trending that way.
Right.
You'll get to that. Hit the portal, figure out some of this other stuff you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare to see. I was trying to think of how often this happens that a special teams coach is the most despised coach on the staff by fans. Cause it's kind of like OL. You usually don't notice them, right? Unless they're screwing up. Like,
that's
just
when
like,
you're bad.
Yeah. It's just like, you just never notice the guy. But I mean, he was a special teams coach, a full-time role, using up one of the spots on the staff. For a lot of schools don't do that. So if you're going to do that, you got to be good. And he just wasn't. And, I'm sure he's
at least recruit.
Yeah.
At least mix in some recruiting.
I don't know. Great. Could be a great guy. Could be the nicest human on earth. But, I mean, it's a big boy game, man. And there's standards at Ohio State. Yeah, there's standards at Ohio State, and he wasn't getting it done. Look for Matt Guerrero to take over those special team duties. And all of a sudden that frees up a position, whether that's an OC or whatever else. We'll have to wait and see what comes. But Ohio State has some flexibility with their staff now. Getting back to the big news, hour later, man, left guard Donovan Jackson announced he was returning for his senior season. He tweeted, quote, "There is still more to do." 26 career starts, first team All Big Ten last season. Cannot overstate how big his return is. given what we saw in the Cotton Bowl out of the offensive line and some of the concerns there, right?
Yeah, and I think he's an example of wants to come back for the brotherhood, all that type of stuff. But I also think even as a first-team Big Ten selection, which I think he was, I think he's got some room. He's got some runway. This guy came in as a 5-star. Yep. I don't think he's a liability by any stretch, and don't want to lump him in with just the overall offensive line, not really taking some leaps that, that fans and probably the staff wanted as well. But I think he's got some room, to get better himself. So I think this is one of those classic comeback, win something, brotherhood, all that matters. But at the same time, hey, there is opportunity here to put some better film out there in some cases. Again, one of the stronger members of this line, don't get me wrong, but I think he would say, hey, I have a higher ceiling. This isn't just about brotherhood. This is, hey, I think I can improve my draft stock. And it's huge for them. I'm sure we'll, talk about it as we hit another portal edition from last week, but lack of depth on top of how, the offensive line looked in some certain situations this year. They were still really lucky for the lion's share of the season. They did not have injuries because they had no depth. None. Jackson coming back and, some of these other things that all of a sudden, okay, I don't know if this is the deepest offensive line in Ohio State history. Don't get me wrong, but at least you got a little bit more chess pieces now.
Absolutely. You went from like maybe a full-blown crisis to, okay, maybe we still have some work to do. There's still some work to do on this unit, but
exactly,
man, getting him back is so big.
Yeah.
80 minutes after that, another news item broke. Cornerback Jordan Hancock announced he's returning for his senior season as well. Just an incredible tweet to announce it, man. No video, no photo, just a tweet that said, quote, breaking news, Jordan Hancock will return for his senior year at Ohio State. Love the guy. Love the tweet. I mean, I think fans got a real kick out of that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was one you were hoping he was coming back, but he's one I think his trajectory was definitely going up, right? I think he kind of grew as the season came along, and you could have penciled him in at a number 2 corner spot if you had to. I think he did some nice work in the slot, not afraid to come up a little bit and run support, and was a playmaker for this defense. So you think about that secondary now. Certainly the corners and nickel room with Burke and Egbuka and Hancock. I mean, those are the guys you relied on for a ton of snaps this year. Makes your depth even that much better with Jermaine. I feel like Jermaine Matthews, like if he had to step in and start next year, hey, sign me up. I'm cool with that, right? I think he's got some chops. But now you just, you bump everybody down a spot or keep them in the same spot instead of asking a little bit more from some of those guys. And I think it's just going to make, the secondary for Ohio State on what was already, an elite defense this year, allow them to hold and maybe take another step.
Yeah, man, those three are going to be a dynamite together. And you got Matthews as your 4th guy coming in if you need someone. He started, OSU's nickel last year, had 41 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. That huge pick 6 against Maryland, who can forget that? But, a guy that started the year maybe splitting some time with Sonny. And then when Sonny got moved for injuries, got more playing time at safety, then all of a sudden, part of it was Sonny had to step up in another position to help out because of injuries. But part of it was, like you said, man, Hancock just kind of emerged and became a great player.
Oh yeah, no, he earned it. Nobody handed him something. He took it, and I think honestly, as you brought up, Sonny, I think reclassified, right? Came in early. Certainly has the physical ability to do it, and showed a lot of strengths for Ohio State. I think another year in the system, film, a lot of snaps, that type of stuff. Maybe next year's. I thought Sonny was fine this year. Don't get me wrong, but I think 5-star talent, right? You're expecting an elite defensive back there, and we haven't seen that. At least I don't think we've seen that yet. Could next year be the year, especially with all these other pieces around him and ransom back and whatnot? Maybe that'll be a time for him to shine too. But yeah, you got to be pretty bullish on the secondary right now if you're an Ohio State fan.
And then you got again, Jack Sawyer back, Tyleek back. The Bullets are going to be scary good next year, and I'm here for it, man. They were really good in 2023. Probably going to be better next season. It's crazy.
There's a chance. You got to see what happens with these linebackers. I think in some ways it's kind of good that they were moving. I think both of them are really certainly fine college players. But what can you do next, right? Is that a portal thing? Is that not? Do they feel good with Simon? Do they feel good with Hicks? What do they think there? You're only playing 2 most of the time, so it's not traditional where you need 3 of them. You got to find 3, but. Thinking about defensive line, especially if Touimoloau comes back too, you got to feel really good about the defensive line, really good about the secondary. I don't see linebacker as a liability, don't get me wrong, but I see it as, the least strong, certainly least proven of what we know is coming back for next year.
Right. And to be fair, you could make an argument that's been the case for a few years, probably at that unit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So, given what they did last year, I feel great. You talked about JTT. He's got a decision to make. TreVeyon Henderson has a decision to make as well. He was in class yesterday, for what it's worth. Don't typically go to class if you're planning to leave for the NFL. And then wide receiver Emeka Egbuka also has a decision to make as well. Man, at this point, just to get two out of three, I'll be ecstatic. And there's an honest chance you can get all three back.
Yeah. I mean, getting Egbuka would be nice just because you've got a bunch of young receivers, talent, for days kind of thing. But having a guy a little bit more proven would obviously be a great thing, especially as you're bringing in a transfer quarterback that we assume is going to be the starter. That said, it's not like he has chemistry with any of those guys, if we're being honest either, right? So there is that piece. But gosh, yeah, I think just thinking about McCord this year, everybody's down on McCord for sure, but when there are games Ohio State couldn't run the ball and it put that much pressure on the quarterback to do something, that kind of fed into the problems, right? And TreVeyon, for as great as he is, it's hard to pencil him in to say he's going to play 14 games or 13 games, and hell, next year with an extended playoff, if you get in the playoff and you make a run, could you play 17 games? At least 16, right? I mean, you're talking about a lot of games. So Judkins being at Ohio State is huge, even if even if just paired with Hayden. But gosh, if you've got TreVeyon and Judkins that you could put in the backfield and just, reduce some wear and tear on those guys, hopefully keep them healthy. And if something does happen, your either or is really, all-American caliber type running back. That's obviously huge. So yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But gosh, if TreVeyon and Judkins to me, I think would be the most important thing if that happens, just because it does take some pressure off the quarterback and maybe even a little bit of pressure off that offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Judkins. Let's talk about the portal moves that took place in the last week. January 4th, Kansas State quarterback Will Howard transferred to Ohio State. Long thought to be coming here, finally arrived. Great locker room guy, huge dude. He's not going to be a Justin Fields, but, probably better than Kyle McCord. Fifth-year senior, will have one season of eligibility. Completed 61% last season for 2,643 yards, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. At Kansas State, didn't have the wide receivers he's going to have at Ohio State. He had a great tight end, but he's not going to. He didn't have the skill players he's going to have at Ohio State. He gets to kind of step into that now. How exciting is that for a guy to come from Kansas State? I think he's an East Coast guy, Philly guy originally, coming over here playing for a guy that is known for developing quarterbacks. Yeah, has a ton of skill players at his disposal. I mean, that's almost a dream scenario for any quarterback in the portal.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the size, like you said. I mean, he's looking for polish. He's looking to play with some better players, kind of thing. Watching the tape of him is interesting because, you hit it. I think he's certainly feels like there's more pocket presence. There's the ability to take off and run when you do sense that the pocket is not Fields, to your point, but also not just stuck back there, right? We'll see, feel like maybe process some information faster, that type of thing. But again, you got to see it. Like you said, I think he has the potential to be an upgrade for McCord. I don't know that, Heisman semifinalist. Don't know that, right? I mean, never say never, but I'm not like penciling that in kind of thing. What do you think? I mean, I know you've been pretty close to this. What do you think is the most attractive thing that Howard is bringing as Day is thinking about, just so far what we know about how the offense is constructed, right? With the pieces coming in and all of that. What do you think means the most to him as far as how well Howard could help take this team? They're not going to just count on the quarterback, but take this team to heights that hasn't been reached, which is why Day, is drawing some flack.
Yeah, I think that obviously pocket presence is a big one for me because, watching tape of him, he's got the wherewithal, the instincts to know when he should duck and run, when he should take the ball and try to get six. And he's a big guy, man. He's, you're not going to not going to be too many batted balls down when he throws it. Yeah. If he can make the right reads, I think he's going to, want to work on that. The 10 interceptions are a little bit high last year, but make the right reads, make them quickly, go through your progressions, and that stuff Day could help him with. But Day, in my mind, doesn't have to worry about a guy that kind of freezes or doesn't know. There were times in Brown in the Cotton Bowl and certainly McCord in the regular season, kind of didn't handle the pocket pressure well. Weren't able to read where it was coming from. Didn't step up. Didn't step to the side. And I think that's something he already brings with him. So I think that's what Day likes. And, in Day's eyes, he's probably thinking, this is a guy I can work with on the progressions. He already has the pocket skills that, He's got a baseline for that, so I can work on the other stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how true that is, but that's kind of what I think.
No, I think it makes sense. I think he can say, yeah, this is a guy that's got some tools. I've got this skill as an OC and a QB developer to say, hey, I can put this guy in position to win. And oh, by the way, what I've seen on tape of him interacting with other players, he's going to have some better players here. So yeah, I think it all stacks up. Really intrigued on what I feel like is like, while I'm a little unclear on the ceiling with him individually, I feel like there's a much safer floor.
That's a good point. Very good point. Well, 2 days later, on January 6th, offensive lineman center, actually, Seth McLaughlin from Alabama transferred to Ohio State. You might remember him from the Rose Bowl, getting blown up a few times, maybe some bad snaps in that game. Not his best game. But man, this is a guy with 25 starts at Alabama under his belt. He's going to have one season of eligibility. You know, he's coming from a program like that. He's already got the culture stuff. He already has a work ethic. He already knows what it takes to do that stuff. Just maybe working on some mechanics and fine tuning his game. And, you know, Justin Fry, I know there was some fan angst at him after the Cotton Bowl. And, you know, he's been dealing with kind of some you know, stud leftovers, some Sadrawa leftovers for a while. But, like, he developed the line up until the Cotton Bowl. This was a unit that got better and better kind of as the season went, too, right? I mean, you look at the drive, the touchdown drive in Michigan in the third quarter, and that, you know, looking back on it now, knowing what we know about Michigan's defense and how good of a team that was, might have been one of the best drives against Michigan this season of any school.
Yeah. I think consistency was a problem in some cases. I think, you know, definitely depth. You can blame some of that on Stud. Also, it's not like Fry got here yesterday. I think you want to bring in some of those guys. You know, you don't just step in at offensive line as a freshman and play. No. Very often. I get it, but you know, moves like, you know, not to slight Victor Cutler, but I guess I am, like getting a Victor Cutler in the portal. Like, you've got to make some better moves in the portal when you're trying to build some depth, right? Like, you basically left it to where you had one center who was a first year starter. You didn't have much else. You end up starting, you know, Matt Jones over there in the bowl game for reasons that, you know, whatever they are. But yeah, I think, you know, for me, bringing in McLaughlin is like, okay, yeah, is he going to be the center? I mean, it sounds like, yeah, he's coming in to compete for the center spot, but you know, does that mean Hinsman bumps to guard automatically? Does it mean they'll compete? Does it mean McLaughlin could be a guard? You can't forget about, you know, Tegra Shabola still around. He was highly rated. To me, again, as we talked about with Donovan, right? It at least gives you some depth. It gives you some chances, right? Like, honestly, I would love to see, to me, they shouldn't be done right after spring ball. If you can go find a tackle out there, you know, Simmons has the tools as a left tackle, right? Like, I think he's not going to be the best left tackle in Ohio State history, but I think his tools, his skill set is one thing. I think Fryer's just more suited to be a guard, right? You can stick him out at tackle, and he's had his moments as well. But, you know, I'm hoping, you know, if you're an Ohio State fan, at least I think you should be hoping that they're not done, and that, yeah, you build up some interior depth for sure. But, you know, how far away is Luke Montgomery? Is he ready to be a tackle yet? Could he slide inside? That's great. But if you can find another tackle out there, I don't think that would be the worst thing they could do. But they're certainly stacking some pieces, and kind of reminds me of the year that DeJuan kind of exploded, right? And it was like you're trying to figure out who your five best are and that kind of thing. I wonder if that'll be a thing like all the way through fall camp or not. Will this settle in the spring to try to figure out, okay, yeah, we think we do have the pieces here? Or after that, will they say, hey, we do want to add another piece? And then, oh, by the way, come August, try to figure out who are our best five, because you do have some versatility. Not all these guys are definitely guards, or hell, even definitely centers or guards, right? Like, you got some movement there, and then you got some guys that, you know, have been playing tackle that could also play guard. So, yeah, seems like a decent problem to have, but, you know, we can talk about these skill guys till we're blue in the face. I mean, you have to win the line of scrimmage. I mean, look what Michigan just did. They won a line of scrimmage, and they got a bunch of experience and whatever, but their defensive line kicked Washington's ass. That's the biggest reason they won the national championship in my mind. They kicked Alabama's ass the game before that, right? Like, you need to dominate the line of scrimmage if you really want to be a player, a legit factor in a playoff, and that's Ohio State cannot under focus on getting this offensive line to be better.
Okay, two quick things. The Cutler thing, I want to just say my theory on that is Ohio State hadn't unlocked some doors for NIL quite yet when that took place.
Yeah.
Probably didn't have the you know, the resources available to get someone, you know, on the high end. I think those doors have been unlocked recently. So they could go after a tackle in the spring. But again, Michigan, man, looking back, I mean, I want to kind of treat the Cotton Bowl as a kind of an outlier, right? Because
I don't think you should.
Why? I mean, they took
because they were 88th in the country in rushing. Like they ran for 138 yards a game. Ohio State's yards per carry was 4.12 yards. You have to go back to 2003 and 2004 to find worse rushing attacks.
Pretty bad.
Literally, yards per carry and yards per game.
But part of that, you didn't have the passing threat to kind of set up some of those runs.
You didn't have a total stiff back there.
And did Michigan bully the Ohio State offensive line in that game when they played in Ann Arbor?
Did Ohio State's offensive line dominate Michigan's defensive line?
No, but they did.
What's the standard here? What's the goal?
They look better than Washington. Washington's line was the Joe Moore Award winner. They look better than Alabama and Washington. So
88th
I don't know, man.
I'm
not quite as panicky. The
I'm
Cotton
not
Bowl
panicked. I'm saying
Cotton Bowl was awful, but I'm not quite there yet. Where I'm like,
I'm not panicked, but 4.1 yards per carry at Ohio State. Literally, you've got to go back 20 years to find a worse yards per carry. Legit.
Yeah, you're right.
So we can't say it's that great.
That's fair. I'm not saying
Henderson
it's great.
played 10 of the 13 games.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying I don't consider the Cotton Bowl a true representation of what that line is.
I don't either.
That's all.
Yeah, I don't think that was the argument. It was, hey, is this a really good offensive line last year? I don't think you can say yes. Some of the sacks and groundings and whatever, you can put those on the quarterback, but opening up holes for the run game, I was largely disappointed last year.
Yeah, I get it, man. Another guy they got January 8th, man. Ole Miss running back Quinshon Judkins, man. Announced his commitment. Like, he's a legend already because he announced his commitment moments after Michigan won
awesome.
the national championship. Of course that was planned. Like, everything's planned. That was 100% planned, and hats off to them for that strategic strike. But already a legend for making that announcement then. Dude's a sick running back, man. Watch his film. Hit YouTube. Watch this guy run, man.
Yeah.
Junior to be rushed for 2,700 yards, 31 touchdowns in 2 seasons at Ole Miss. SEC Freshman of the Year after leading the league in rushing as a true freshman in 2022. His film, again, just pops, man. Pro Football Focus has him as the 5th best running back in terms of forcing missed tackles last season. Yeah. Dude's got some shakes and some size, and runs hard, and he kind of runs with violence, man. And, getting him is big. And again, some of these NIL doors that were unlocked, some of these resources that are coming online played a big part in that. And, if the Bucs can get Henderson back, which is still open, and they got Judkins and Henderson, that's the best backfield in the country. And it's also a situation where maybe you don't have to give, you have a 1A and a 1B, and they can flip week to week, where 1 week a guy could get 18 and another guy could get 12, and they're not getting banged up all season, man. Because I know Judkins had a lot of attempts, man, at Ole Miss. I want to say over 260, 270 in each of his first 2 seasons there, or each of his 2 seasons there. And, that's a lot, man. It's a lot for college ball. So there's some appeal there. Maybe you got the 2-headed monster. They can both stay fresh, and all season long you have a 2-headed monster just destroying, opposing defenses. Yeah.
Maybe it's a story I'm telling myself, but you hit on it. I feel like in this day and age, the way NFL undervalues running backs, the last thing you want to do is have, 600 carries on the odometer by the time you get there, kind of thing. So I could definitely see a situation where he's coming here because of exactly what you said, carried the ball a lot in those first 2 seasons in the SEC against, some physicality in that league. And here he can, team up with a guy. To me, when he committed, it kind of fed into my belief that, Henderson is going to cut, like, someone like, oh, that means Henderson's gone. I think it, to me, we'll see what happens. I don't know anything, but would that mean that, it would actually favor him coming back, because it would give him a chance to show what he can do. But at the same time, not take, just a beating all game long, every game long. And then for Ohio State, like I said, I mean, TreVeyon, God love him, but the first season he plays, where he plays every game, will be his first since Little League, right? I mean, even in high school, he had some nicks and whatnot, and then came here, and his experience the same. So being able to it seems like it would help both those guys get what their ultimate goals are.
And honestly, probably push each other,
Yeah.
Because you have, Mayan, I love Mayan, love guys like that, love Chip, but they weren't TreVeyon's level. They weren't elite backs. And
Dowling, great back, but I mean, these two guys, they feel like they're a different level. I think there's a good chance they could complement each other well. Like, to me, if Henderson's going to go in the league and do well, it ain't going to be running between the tackles. I just think the the body's not going to hold up, right? Like catch, I mean, you saw what he did as a receiver out of the backfield. To me, that's one of his greatest traits. Like, the whole get him in space certainly is a thing, but get him in space through the air, that dude's a matchup nightmare for a linebacker or someone trying to cover him, right? And the way these NFL offenses work today, they're not afraid to do that type of stuff. So I think, Day can do that as well, did that a lot this year, could do it even more next year to kind of even showcase the kind of role maybe Tre would even be more suited to as a running back in the league. And then Judkins maybe is a little bit more of that, prototype, I guess, running tailback that runs at an edge. Tre can run between the tackles. I'm not trying to say he can't. I just think, maybe Judkins a little bit more suited to that, his style. And, because there's sometimes you see Tre, he runs really hard, but sometimes he wants to take on a linebacker. I'm like, please don't do that. Like, just don't try to prove that to anybody. You're going to get hurt, right? Just step out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, run around them or, run out of bounds. We need to take on all these guys. Hopefully it's a little bit of flash and dash.
Yeah, it'd be great. And Judkins is actually pretty decent out of the backfield catching passes.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's no slouch. I just think his inside runner maybe gives you, a little bit more to say, hey, let's maybe utilize him more in these types of situations, and we know what Tre can do on the outside. Yeah,
you mentioned Hayden, man. That's one you got to. If TreVeyon comes back, man, I wonder if he's going to want to, maybe look around, because all of a sudden you got Judkins and TreVeyon in front of him, and this is
I wouldn't blame him.
Not what he envisioned probably at this stage of his career.
Yeah, wouldn't blame him in the slightest if that happened. But how do you turn down if you can get a Judkins in the fold and hang on to a Henderson? I mean, you've got to do that, especially I feel like like I said, every season Henderson has been here. Trainham ends up getting a lot of carries in big games, or Mine's getting a lot of carries in big games because staying healthy has been, a little bit of a problem. And we'll see what, Peoples it's not impossible for a freshman running back to come in and do something, especially if you need him to be a third stringer. If Hayden did go somewhere, right, you got people, you'll have some other, you'll have some other options should you need that third guy. But a healthy Tre and a healthy Judkins, I don't know how many extra carries going to be able to go around that are meaningful, right? There'll be some mop up, but how much meaningful would there be?
Yeah, and like you said, how could you worry about Dallin, but at the same time, how can you just added an SEC rushing champion? Like, you have to take that dude 10 out of 10 times. Man, so portal, got guys coming back. What about recruiting, man? Because there's been some good booms lately too, man. Yesterday, defensive end. This was like earlier in the day, like on a day full of news. Defensive end Zahir Mathis, the number 5 edge in the country, number 37 overall player in the 2025 class. 6'6", 225 kid from Philly. He's going to have to put on a little bit of weight. You probably don't want to play too much defensive end in the Big Ten at 225, but man, he's fast. He's explosive. He's got some great moves off the edge there. And what a big get, man. It's he joins 5-star cornerback Devin Sanchez, who committed to the Buckeyes on Saturday during the Army All-American Bowl broadcast on NBC. Number 6 player in the 2025 class, number 2 cornerback. A top 6 player. Just stop and let that sink in for a second. 6'2", 170. Got a lot of length for a corner. You got to love that. Can run. Houston kid joins Blake Woodby as another top 100 cornerback in Ohio State's 2025 class. Talked about Tim Walton earlier. His development, his recruiting, just killing it here. Former Buckeye, Ohio, just crushing it here, man. And what a big get that was for him, because that was one of the first big pieces. The Sanchez thing on Saturday was one of the first big pieces of good news in like a month and maybe a quarter stretch of not great news for Ohio State fans. Right, so that was good to get. That 25 class has got 6 commits, 4 of them on the defensive side of the ball. So an early focus over there, and 4 of them ranked among the top 100 prospects nationally. So getting top 100 kids. I mean, ESPN likes to tout their, so-and-so got a top 300 kid, but you're getting 4, 2/3 of your class is top 100 kids already. And you're probably going to stack onto that. Love it.
Yeah, just getting started. And I think everything about this Devin Sanchez kid, you see the numbers, that's one thing, but you read some of the interviews with him and just, what he's trying to do, wants to help recruiting, all those things you want to hear, right? Just seems like it could even be, future captain type material is kind of one of those headliners in that class so far. To me, the biggest thing is, kind of what you said, the one offensive player that are in those top 4 guys. You said there's 6 in the class. There's, 4 in the top 100, 3 of those 4 being defense, I think is huge, right? Because I think a lot of fans point to, to, hey, yeah, when they critique the program, they say, yeah, it's boosted by receivers that ultimately end up transferring out, or just offensive heavy, recruiting classes. In the defense, you don't have that much, and LJ's Larry Legends lost it, not getting enough guys, and seeing that 3 of the 4 so far on defense is good. Obviously, we already talked about what Walton's doing to your point, but this defensive end prospect is really intriguing with it just happening yesterday, knowing that you and I aren't like total recruitments. I haven't read a lot or dove into a lot of that yet, but that was the first thing that jumped out at me. 6'6", 225 is like, okay, yeah, a little lean, right? Like to be an edge in the Big Ten. So what does that look like in the future? It's also got some years to put on some weight and that kind of thing, but yeah, you're not turning down that type of talent, that's for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how he evolves as Ohio State moves forward.
Could very easily be 240 when he gets here, 255 by the time he gets through, summer or a winter of Mick and whatnot. A lot of good things happening. Ryan Day's got a little bit of momentum right now. I mean, like he took some heat, man. He took some heat for the Michigan loss, his 3rd in a row. And again, it's weird how football works, because for Ohio State fans, that's the game you have to win. And he's got to win this season in 24 against Michigan and Columbus. He's got to. He just has to. Can't lose 4 in a row. I mean, you just can't do it. One loss here and there is bad enough, but if you stack 4 in a row, that's when fans start to say, okay, we got to find someone else. I mean, there are a lot of fans saying right now that they got to find something else. And, I think it was important for Day to kind of get some of this momentum. That 3rd straight loss to Michigan. Yeah. But again, like I was just talking about how football is kind of weird, because you start to look now, is that Michigan loss? I mean, it's still a loss. It's still super painful. But like, again, man, really close to beating the national champion 2 years in a row. And I know you'll have guys out there saying that doesn't count, that you got to win those games. And that's fair. That's fair. But this isn't a program that's getting blown out by elite teams. Right. It's a program that's pretty close, man. It's got to do some things. Got to make some changes with some coaches. Got to bring in some certain types of players. Got to maybe change how they do X or Y. And he's shown a willingness to do this. And probably a lot of people out there saying, he waited too long to fire Parker Fleming. And that may be fair, but to his credit, man, again, that's another coach. He's like, this isn't working. He did it with Combs, Shiano, Studrawa, like Yurcich. He's not afraid to kind of jettison guys that aren't getting it done or who he doesn't think fit the program. That doesn't absolve him from making the hiring mistake, but like, I mean, this is like the most good old boy industry on earth. I would bet there are more vibes-based hires in college football than any industry on earth. Like, that's my cousin's nephew. I'm going to give him a job. There's so much. It's just how it works. And even in like elite industries, McKinsey, they have bad hires. Like Deloitte has bad hires. Like it happens, man. People come in and kill the interview, and they're not who you think they are. So you got that done. The Cotton Bowl, that was a disaster. That is weird too, because it's one of those games you go into and thinking, oh well, whatever. But then they got your hopes up. Oh, Devin Brown's killing in practice and this and that. And then to get that result was very disappointing. But now, again, making these coaching moves he wants to see. Got this string of players coming back for another year, the chance to win gold pants. Sawyer, Tyleek, the guys yesterday. That's something that does not happen in a program that's collapsing. You look at like Cooper, the famous Reggie Germany 0.0 GPA and eligibility, like the bowl losses to South Carolina and some of that stuff. Like the wheels were clearly falling off there. The wheels were falling off before Kalen DeBoer got to Washington and Jimmy Lake was the coach. And he's out there punching guys on the sideline or whatever the hell he was doing. The wheels were falling off for Rich Rodriguez at the end of his run in Michigan. You could, Mark Helfrich at Oregon, the wheels were falling off for him. You could see it. Ohio State's is taking some body blows, taking some setbacks, but some of the news that's come out, man, is not a sign. The commitments in the 25 class, the big portal hunting they're doing, NIL's getting ramped up in Columbus after, a lot of work to kind of get it to where it is. It's not to me the sign of a program that's on, it's in trouble right now quite yet.
That's a great summary. I don't even know what I could add to it. I think you're absolutely right. People are gonna have their feelings, decision, or what. It's people out there when Vrabel gets fired. Oh, bring Vrabel in. Like it's just so knee jerk, right? Like the dude doesn't want to recruit. Like what are you even talking about? But yeah. I think if you're an Ohio State fan, even if you're not a Day fan, you've really got to hope at this point that this turns into kind of that Harbaugh scenario, right? Where you've hung in there, and then the tide turns kind of thing. But I do think it's interesting that, Michigan just won the national title a couple days ago. And as much as that sucked to watch, and I watched it all, I watched the post game. I'm like, gotta take your medicine here kind of thing.
Me too.
Like, I don't want to say it's out of sight, out of mind, because it's not. And it's still, a sickening feeling, but whatever. Thursday mornings, however many days removed from that, just all the things that have happened since then, are those things the equivalent of winning a national title? Hell no, they're not, right? Do they erase losing to Michigan? Hell no, they don't. But they are, generally building blocks of trying to get in that situation. I just see so many parallels. I mean, people probably like, oh God, don't even say, I don't want to be compared to it. But you think about a lot of these guys coming back. What did all those Michigan guys say they were doing? They were all coming back because they had some similar vibes, or felt like, not so much because of High State loss, but felt like they had a chance to win a title and squandered it kind of thing. They came back. The whole Harbaugh thing, that dude was on the ropes, right? High State. I hope he stays there forever, lifetime contract. Nobody's really saying that anymore, right? So, could this be the similar kind of situation where the tide kind of turns? They're at least stacking some W's now after, feeling like you're stacking a lot of L's. And one of those L's, to your point, always hurts when you lose. But yeah, that Michigan game, somehow that loss got even worse because of just the stickiness to the Cotton Bowl and just how bad that was of just an event overall, right? It's like, oh, they lost the last two. It's almost like you feel like Michigan blew them out kind of thing, just because the Missouri loss just felt so bad. Like, this program can't get under the hump under this guy. So yeah, stacking some W's, good thing. Hopefully some more to stack here in the coming days.
Yeah. I mean, again, another part about football being weird. The only quarterback in the country that had 2 or more touchdown passes against Michigan this season?
Kyle McCord.
Guy that got crucified basically for throwing 2 picks in that game. But you look at the numbers, like everyone played bad. I mean, Penix is elite, man. He went from like, oh, is this the best quarterback in the country again in that game and against Texas in the semifinals to man, this guy lost some money playing Michigan in the championship game because he's going to drop a little bit in the draft. So
that it's a weird sport, man. Roughed him up.
It's a weird sport, and life's weird like that. But I like the stacking W's term or phrase you use, because that's what it feels like. And this is not the same because they were different sports, so they didn't impact each other. But when Urban clobbered Tressel in the Fiesta Bowl, and I was probably as down as I've ever been as an Ohio State fan after that, because like no one saw that coming. Like, we were so arrogant going into that game, wire to wire, number one. Like, we're going to dust these Florida kids. They have, they already got a loss. They barely got in. Just beating number 2 Michigan, an instant classic. There's no way they can hang, and then just like stunned that night. I mean, probably one of the most shocking losses, Ohio State losses of my life that I can think of, because you're just like, what happened? Like, how'd this happen? And you got the in and out stories and everything. But that basketball team, man, with Oden, with Conley, and those guys, Cook, like, brought the spirits back. And it did a lot for my mental health, man. I'm not going to lie, man. That team, like Thad Matta and those guys, like, saved my mental health that winter, because they made, sports fun really quickly again. And Day's kind of doing this. Like, very important to get those W's, to stack those W's, to say, look, man, I'm trying. I'm still going to try. And I think back to, remember when Harbaugh had lost all those games in a row before he'd won the last 3, and then Big Ten Media Days, someone would ask him what he's going to do to try to beat Ohio State. And he says he's going to die trying. And I feel like that's where Day needs to be right now. He needs to die trying, or figure out, get it done. And that's a figure of speech. I obviously don't want Day to die. But, there are fans out there that might. Pat.
He's taking an aggressive approach to, I've got to do some things.
Just get after it. Make it everything in your life and put everything you have into it. But, the flip side is, man, if he loses to him this season, because, like, listen, Harbaugh's gone. He's not coming back next year. He's going to avoid the NCAA problems. His stock's super hot. He gets to go out as a national champ, sitting at the big kid table, as he said. Like, he's gone. There's a 99.9% chance he's gone. They're going to have a new coach. They're going to be depleted with their 44 seniors out of the program. Got some talent. They got a really good culture. Obviously, he's built up. But, like, if Dade loses at home to this version of Michigan, man, that's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, it would. I think it's got to be unacceptable, even to those that have been defending Day, and I get it. I think I'm largely on that side. I think there's some things that have been frustrating, but I'm definitely not in the fire Day camp. But yeah, you don't win it again next year at home. Like, at some point, I mean, Joe Torre got fired when the World Series 3 and 4. Like, at some point you got to make a change, kind of thing. So yeah, and I feel like that's how he's kind of coaching right now. I'm gonna say like desperate, because I don't think that's what it is, but definitely like, hey, it feels like it's got a now or never vibe kind of to it.
Hair's on fire a little bit, man.
Yeah,
I want to see it. So yeah, so many things happened yesterday. We just broke them down. All of them great for Ohio State if you're an objective fan. And then, like, in early evening, maybe the biggest news in college football in the last forever just dropped, and that was Nick Saban calling it quits at Alabama. 17 years there, won 6 natties, 9 SEC championships. Of course, he won the 1 national championship when he was at LSU prior to Bama. 11 seasons of 12 or more wins there. That's incredible. I mean, you know how hard it is to get to 12 wins? We were roasting Michigan like 2 years ago for like finally getting 12 wins for the first time in, ever, or 80 years or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
you just stack them like they're no big deal. Like 12 wins was the Alabama fans' birthright down there. Did that, man. 201-29 there. Arguably the greatest college football coach ever. I mean, I think right now you can make a strong case that he is. And it's always weird. It's always hard to judge in the moment, like the recency bias and all this other stuff. But man, he was a good coach and he was legit.
Yeah, I think he's the GOAT. I think, the wins thing, obviously done a lot of great stuff down there, but, between, some of those late November Saturday games, and I can't remember where I saw it. I saw a stat. I think it was he was 4-0 during that tenure and out of conference, non-conference road games
in 17 years. Out of conference 2 road games.
That's nuts. He won them all, but there was legit 4 of them, right?
Yeah,
so that was pretty amazing. And you said 29 losses?
Yeah, he would go to like the Georgia Dome and beat someone. That's about as far as he went, though. He's like, I'll meet you in Atlanta.
But a true non-conference road game.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, played 4 of them in 17 years and won them all. I thought that was pretty awesome. Which, hey, how can you argue with the results? But the 29 losses, I think in that same time period, was it like 44 first rounders or something like that? It was just, there's going to be all those superlatives that come out. They're just nuts. I mean, to me, there was a time that I did not like Saban. But honestly, over time, like it's not even just respect. Like I like the dude. I think a lot of things he said about the state of college football and so, he's going to stump for his team, and nobody likes when those kinds of things happens when you perceive it as an indirect shot, maybe to your team kind of thing. But that's what your coach is supposed to do. I think you set that stuff aside. I don't know. It's hard to say he's not the best to overdo it. I need to know who someone thinks is better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. The oversigning back in the day, I used to hate his guts, but like grew to respect him, and how can you not? Like, it's hats off to him. And someone was saying he was calling around, about coaching hires in like the last 24 hours. He must have just been like, I'm good, man. I'm just, and honestly, with the portal, and I'm sure he hates the portal, and I'm sure he hates NIL and everything else that's new now. And he's just like, go enjoy his money, go sell Mercedes, go run his dealerships. Would love to see him. Dan Hope brought this up in our Slack. Would love to see, Lee Corso on game days. Not the greatest these days, and I think everyone can see that. And Lee's a legend, but at some point there's going to have to be a Lee replacement. And how fun would Nick Saban be in that role?
Oh yeah, I think it would great. I mean, he knows the game. He's not just some figurehead, right? Like he's the CEO, but he knows he knows the X's and O's just as much as he knows recruiting the Jimmies and Joes. And I would love to see him. Like one of the best things Urban ever did was go. I feel like I learned more from Urban on a pregame show than any other personality I've ever seen on a pregame show. Mm-hmm. Like he's breaking down things that are practical, not just, this guy runs really hard or, get him in space. Like, Urban is breaking stuff down. I think Saban's ability to do that, and just even at halftime, you think about, okay, what kind of adjustments might they want to make here? And I just feel like he would just be, would be awesome at that, to where as a fan, instead of just that normal drivel and hot takes and whatever, you might actually learn something if he was doing the broadcast.
Yeah, and just to see his face when like they put Jack Harlow up there to do a music song or something, like just him hating, like, because you watch him in interviews, if he doesn't want to be there, he's sitting in the interview like his arms are crossed. He's like, he doesn't want to be there at all, and I love that, man. He wears his emotions on his sleeve sometimes. Fun little wrinkle with the transfer rules now, that any Alabama player can now enter the portal. There's a 30-day window because you got a head coaching change. So Caleb Downs, that stud freshman safety, they had like there's some dudes that I think every team in America would love to have. And especially imagine being Kirby Smart. Like, you're going to clean up because you were battling your next door neighbor for all these regional battles, and now it's just you and who else is going to compete with you down there. I guess, we can talk about this now. Like, Bet Online put out odds to replace Saban. They got Dan Lanning of Oregon as a front runner at 3-1. Dabo, it was an Alabama grad, at 4-1. And I think Dabo might have been that big front runner at one point in time. But the last couple of years, they're like fighting with Tyler online, and some of the stuff haven't treated him too well. And his stock's a little off. And then Lane Kiffin third at 5-1. Dion somehow fourth at 6-1. I'd never
just stealing people's money is all.
I guess they did an Aflac commercial. Maybe that's where the tide comes in. But that seems like one of those lines just thrown out there to get.
That's just sports books. Yeah, just preying on dumb people.
Kalen DeBoer, Washington, also 6-1. Pat Shurmur 9-1. Urban Meyer 10-1, which would be probably the funniest possible hire they could make. because their fans hate him. It would make Buckeye fans feel really weird. Like it would be just, I'm here for it. It'd be funny as hell. And then Ryan Day at 20-1. There's some other coaches in between there, but Day at 20-1. Again, can't see Day going there. Can't ever see that happening, but might as well throw some lines out and see if you can get some people to bet on them, right? I mean,
reel in some money.
I'll put John Daly out there at 1,000-1 if you want. Like there's, it's free
Where was
money.
Gruden? What was Gruden's odds?
Gruden to a free real estate, man. Just throw anything out there. Like if I was running a book, I would throw all kinds of stuff out there, man. Gruden, have Vrabel in there, like have Belichick in there, like 5-1, and we'll see if it shakes out. Dan Lanning's I like him a lot, man.
That's intriguing. Yeah,
it is, and he, of course, he was with Kirby is on his staff before he went to Oregon. But Oregon fans would be salty because Lanning's always talking about how he wants to stay there forever, and of course, he's 0-3 against Washington. This guy gets a lot of love. He's 0-3 against his rival. And Kirby's 1-5 against Nick Saban. How happy's Kirby? Like 1-5. Kirby's like got 2 natties. He's 1-5 against Saban. Like this is like probably the best news he's gotten in a long time.
Yeah. It depends on who they get in there. Obviously, it'll be a downgrade from Saban, and normally the saying is you want to be the guy that follows the guy, right? You don't want to be the one following the legend's shoes immediately. But gosh, it feels like that team that program is still primed to be successful, especially if you can get a proven commodity in there. They're not going to go with some blatant up and comer that's an offensive coordinator somewhere. So, it'd be interesting to see what ultimately happens there. Your comment about the whole 30-day window, I guess that kind of struck me. I hadn't really thought about that too much yet. Of this, what kind of pressure in this day and age? I mean, not that you ever want to take 2 months to make a hire, you can't, right? But I wonder how quickly they feel like they have to act. And if Saban really was, on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, still kind of doing the job, who really knew what was happening? Have there been any back channels? That stuff will all come out, obviously. But, man, it just feels like it's always important to not have that role open for long. Again, don't get me wrong. With this day and age, you need to help your players understand that you got to plan pretty quickly, right? Because otherwise maybe they might be, have some ants in their pants. So I guess I'll be interested to see not so much who for sure, but how quickly is another factor now, just based off of what you were just talking about with the portal.
That's a great point because you don't want to wait 31 days. I know that. That's pretty much a disaster. So,
especially when all the sharks are coming, right? This whole thing of like you're really not supposed to recruit other people's. That obviously is not. Yeah, there's no one's adhering to right that. Now. These kids' phones are ringing off the hook. Alabama doesn't have a plan. They don't know what they're going to do. Like that stuff's happening.
They're hiring Harvey Updike. You better get out of there. Hurry.
Exactly.
Come north, young man. And what's really interesting, too, is that, this is one job that's going to affect a lot of other jobs.
Yeah. It will.
Because if Lanning goes, let's assume it's Lanning. Then he goes and Oregon open up, and that's a great job. And someone takes Oregon, and then their job opens up, which is probably a decent job. And then, it's a little ladder effect there. Like, there's going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of movement. So, I don't know. Good time to have a coach in place and a little stability, and maybe you can pray on this. And again, Caleb Downs, if you're listening to the show, would still love to have you in Columbus. That dude's 100%. Stud. What else happened? I feel like, we like to keep these shows. We wanted to do this, and we got bigger plans down the road, more guests, some features, some cool stuff. But we wanted to keep them short. We always tried to want to be at 31, 35 minutes, somewhere in that range, because, the 2-hour YouTube shows are great, and a lot of them are really good. But I think people are busy, right? And we want to try to give people as much information. We want to be information dense and get in and out. And I'm looking down here, man, this is going to creep up on an hour quickly. And it feels like it hasn't been any filler. It's all been like legit college football, Ohio State Buckeye talk. But I mean, there's still things to chat about real quick. I mean, Mike Vrabel on Tuesday was canned by Tennessee, out after 6 seasons, went 6-11 last year. And with some people in the Ohio State fan base calling for Ryan Day's head lately, that's very tantalizing to see Mike Vrabel's, open out there on the market. And Vrabel once said that Ohio State was his dream job. So the guys will point to that. But to be fair, he said that before NIL, the portal, and all these other things, doubled the hours you have to work on this job.
Right. Yeah, I just have a hard time with it. He just seems like an NFL. I don't know. I mean, I don't know Vrabel. He just screams NFL guy to me. And, is New England a stop, something like that? I think he's going to have some NFL jobs. I think he wants to dip on the sideline. I think he probably wants to do some things that may not be conducive to the, the college experience kind of thing, including dealing with, dads and, handlers and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I'm sure agents are bad enough. So, I don't know. I mean, never say never, right? What do I know? But I would be pretty stunned if Vrabel was a college coach anywhere, certainly at Ohio State next year.
Yeah, not going to be Ohio State next year. He may, who knows? Down the road, he could be at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I will say that if he ever does come here, Lou Holtz won't be talking about how Ohio State's not physical because they'll be a physical-ass team with Mike Vrabel.
He'll get punched in the face.
Yeah, they'll be physical, so I won't have to worry about that. But again, Vrabel, keep an eye on New England or what else. I mean, he'll get an NFL job. He's a great coach. Do you see the picture? Speaking of dipping on the side, do you see the picture of Baker Mayfield in practice the other day with a can? The Zen, like the nicotine pouches. He had a can of Zen in his football pants, like the big, like just showing out his pants, and then people are like, "Oh man, Buccaneers by 200." Baker's got some
playoffs, man. Yeah,
little shake and bake. Other news: Chris Ward, man, elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. He's been on the ballot for a while. It's good to see him make it.
Awesome.
OSU starting left tackle from 1975 to 1977, two-time first-team All-American, becomes the 28th former Buckeye elected to the Hall of Fame. And I don't know. I'm greedy when it comes to that. I want as many Ohio State players in there as possible. So love to see that.
Yeah. Congrats.
You probably saw Ward play a couple times, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, sure. I probably did. Yeah, it was like 4 or 5. Left tackle, always a tough position to play. I think 3-time All Big Ten, started 3 straight years, like you said, 2 All-American. I think 1 was consensus. So obviously has the resume. So yeah, salute to Chris Ward for sure.
Absolutely. Also going in, Mark D'Antonio, another guy with Ohio State connections. Yeah. Not a Buckeye, but from Zanesville. Obviously the DC on Ohio State's 02 Natty team, and played his college ball at South Carolina. So SEC dude, but good to see Dino go in. I think I like Mark D'Antonio going to the Hall of Fame because I know it probably pissed Michigan fans off more than anything else, because that they hate his guts and thought he ran a criminal program with guys getting out of line and all that stuff. So I'm happy to see him go in under those, in that lens or what have you. Something else we've got to talk about, CJ Stroud, man, taking the Texans to the playoff, just setting rookie numbers left and right, even missing a couple of games. What a fantastic season for him. And how about those Browns fans that are also diehard Buckeye fans? And, it's going to be like the button meme where they're like, want CJ to have a good game, but want my team to win. Like, what do you, if you're a diehard Browns Buckeye fan, what's your play there? You want the Browns to win?
Browns fan, you want the Browns to win, even if you're a Buckeye fan,
but you
right?
want
you
CJ
want Stroud
to
play
game.
well, probably, but you definitely want to win that game. I don't think there's any doubt. As not a Browns fan, I'm really looking to see Stroud ball out and maybe play a game or two in this playoffs. I think he's got that. It's not even just the numbers you put up that you were talking about that he's putting up. It's in these clutch moments. I mean, this dude just delivers. I mean, how many drives does he have late in the game where he's leading the team back, even after the other team has scored, and now he's got to answer. I mean, this dude just keeps coming and keeps coming, and nobody knew who Nico Collins was, and he's kind of helped put him on the map. I don't know, man. The dude is he is special. To do this as a rookie is insane. So yeah, as not a Browns fan, no hate to Browns fans, but yeah, I'm definitely pulling for Stroud.
I think as a Browns fan, you got to hope the Browns win, but CJ throws for 300.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That's your defense. I don't know. I don't think I'm not a Browns guy either.
NFL's a win though. There's no style points.
That's true.
Just win. So.
That's true. I heard NFL analysts last month talk about how good the Texans receivers are. I'm like, what are you talking? No one even knew who these dudes were until CJ got there.
How good was Nico Collins last year?
Right. These guys' numbers have tripled. Everyone on that team. Noah Brown out there looking Jerry Rice somehow all of a sudden.
Yeah. And he's been around. He's kind of carved out a career, but he's not some elite performer.
Made them all look good, man. So hats off to CJ. That game's in Houston too. The Browns got to travel for that one, and man, just imagine being a Texans fan. Your franchise is just it's kind of like the Blue Jackets of the NFL to some degree. Mm-hmm. And you get in a quarterback, you're like, okay, we're 3 years away. He's going to go 1-16 his first year, and this and that, and all of a sudden you're in the playoffs in year one. And then you got Carolina, who took Bryce Young ahead of him, and their owner is so pissed off he was throwing drinks on people. Did you see the video of the dude throwing drinks? What are you doing, dude? You're a millionaire.
You can't $250,000 or something.
You can't throw drinks on people as a millionaire. You got to cut that out of your life, man. You can't do that. So love it for the Houston fans. And I'm not a Columbus guy. I grew up here, but college football guy first. So I'm kind of an NFL casual, but I do love the NFL playoffs, man. There's some electric games, and they do it right, man. I hope when the CFP, heard ESPN's offering a lot of money for the next iteration of the CFP playoffs, but I would love to see it go on multiple networks like the NFL does.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on
Yep.
NBC, you can go on CBS, you can go on Fox, you can go on ESPN, you can get games.
Save the Peacock, but yeah, other than that, I'm with you.
Did you see there's a game on Peacock? Exclusive
Saturday
Peacock
night.
game?
Yeah.
How mad would you be if you? I mean, it was bad enough when Ohio State was on Peacock for a nobody game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if an NFL playoff game and you got to subscribe, you got to download that dumb app, and you got to figure it out.
No pregame show. At least there wasn't for the
Yeah, just had like a screen, like the YouTube starting soon screen.
Game will
like,
start soon. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
dummy.
Unreal.
You're supposed to talk about it first.
Unreal. And that's all for today's show, man. It was a big one, Chris. Had a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like the show. Subscribe. I feel like a team when you say like and subscribe, but I feel like we should get one of our kids to pop out and say like and subscribe, but having a blast and had a lot of fun today. Any last words, Chris?
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, we figured out an out yet. I feel like we got like the weakest out game on YouTube right now.
I always liked your radio one, man.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep it going.
Nah, I want to mix it up a little bit, man. I want to. Yeah, we'll figure something out. So if you have any suggestions for an out, please help us out. But thanks for tuning in, and as Chris said, have a great day. See ya.